Hey everybody, and welcome to a properly epic wild ride with Steve-O. We've got Duncan Trussell, a comedian, a podcaster, and the star of the Netflix show Midnight Gospel. But what makes it so epic? Well, I've called different episodes different things. I said that our Tiffany Haddish episode was the best one we had recorded. T-Pain, I said, was the juiciest one. Jim Jeffries, I said, was the funniest one. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this episode is my personal absolute favorite of all of them that we have done to date. Why? Because I got to talk to him about stuff that I am not at all comfortable talking about with most people, and that means so much to me. We get real into hardcore drugs and spirituality, and it's all just fun and funny, and I really fell in love with this guy, and so will you. So let's get into it. Dude, I love that you got a dope-ass microphone, too. So
I gotta have one. I podcast. You got one, too? Sure. SM7B. It's the standard.
It doesn't help me sound any less shitty, but
we got this friend. How many times online have I been told that I sound like you?
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
Epic.
Oh, yes.
Well, hey, as they say, let's not leave it in the hall. So if you're ready, man, we'll dive right in.
Oh, I'm ready. Yeah, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Duncan Trussell.
Hello!
Yeah, dude. Allow me to introduce you to my co-host, Scott Randolph.
What's going on, DT?
Great to meet you, Scott.
Great to meet you.
And up at the front of the van, we've got the gorgeous Paul Brisky.
Hello, Duncan.
Hey,
how
Paul.
are you? What's
You're
up, man?
gorgeous.
Oh,
God,
thank you.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. You did the thing. This is the thing. It's the ultimate thing where you put your podcast studio in the van. It's final phase. It's awesome.
Who's beat us to this? Because I was feeling pretty confident that the wild ride was all us.
Well, Tom Green.
This has been going on since before Tom started the van life. But of course, let's pay homage to the king who started podcasts in general.
Good point. Everyone.
We're all following Tom Green in some way.
I didn't mean anyone beat you to it. I just mean when you're fantasizing about the freedom around podcasting, and you naturally start thinking, fuck, what if I just put the whole thing in a van and travel around the country? This was before I have kids now. I can't do that. But in the old days when I was addicted to ketamine, that was like that. I'll just put all my modular synths in the fucking thing, drive. You don't get much further than drive. It seems like it could get old. Where are you? Are you in LA?
We are. Yeah, since this is on Zoom, we're simply parked where we normally park. But I love a lot of things you just said. I really got turned on by, like addicted to ketamine. Fucking love ketamine. I can't have it. I can't have it anymore either. But God,
bummer too, isn't it?
It didn't bring out the best. Ticket. Yeah, I wasn't very cool on it, but I fucking thought I was.
But it felt cool.
That's one of the weird things about ketamine is it gives you this bizarre, narcissism. It really fucks with your ability to.
Oh, dude, what it is pharmaceutical PCP. It falls in the class of drug known as dissociative.
Yeah.
And PCP is a much dirtier street version, but they have a lot in common. And,
hold on, writing down, need to try PC.
Oh my God, I was about equally out there on both. Another thing I want to zero in on that, you described the idea of putting it all into a van as the ultimate freedom, but that was so not my motivation, dude. My motivation was this whole podcast bandwagon where, dude, honestly, having a podcast is about having a fucking Instagram account these days. Everybody has one. It's embarrassing. And because everybody has a podcast, it's always been the most annoying question that anybody could really ask me, among them anyway. Will you do my podcast? I'm thinking, will I screw up an entire day to come sit down with you and talk to ourselves? Well, look,
this is the gift of COVID, though, because to me, there was this a pretty superstitious idea floating around, which is you got to be in the room to really do a good podcast.
Right.
You got to smell their pheromones. You got to like breathe in their musk. And then you can connect. And, you know, I think there's something to be said for that musk inhalation theory, but also
musk inhalation theory.
Yeah, this doesn't disrupt it too much.
We've had some really fucking good ones on Zoom, man. Like Tiffany Haddish had us like just about crying. I mean, anybody listening to this, check out the Tiffany Haddish episode. I said it was the best one we ever did.
Are you saying that?
That's what I said at the time. Yeah, but in any case, the reason why I wanted to move it into a van was because knowing how much it's annoyed me over the years, people trying to get me on their podcast, I just like had a lot of resistance to bringing that question to people myself. So I thought if I put it all into a van, then just say, hey, you know, whenever and wherever is convenient for you, we'll just show up, you hop in, it's going, boom, get out. We'll make it so easy for you. So the idea of a portable studio was...
It's like Bang Bus.
It's a verbal Bang Bus.
Dude, you were watching Bang Bus and you're like, fuck, I think this will work for podcasts.
Yeah, like this format.
I'm so glad that you mentioned Bang Bus because back in the day...
Thank God you mentioned Bang Bus.
Well, yeah,
Duncan.
I mean, think about this. Let me run this by all of you guys.
What's Bang Bus? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'm gonna run something by all of you guys right now. Yes. You tell me if my theory is correct, okay?
Okay.
Prostitution is illegal, okay? But what if on the Bang Bus you've got an ordained minister? So you get on the bus, you pick out a lady, and you ask that lady to marry you. Yeah. Now, the ordained minister officially marries you. So now you are husband and wife. You consummate the marriage on the bus, and then when you're done having sex, then you think the better of it and annul the marriage, and then you get off the bus once again unmarried. Have I not just legalized prostitution?
Well, do you pay her at some point? Does she get something in the settlement?
I mean, I think that annulling the marriage, I think that out of respect, you might want to have some kind of a settlement. Yeah, you want to.
It's a divorce settlement. Yeah.
I think you've come up with your show. It's like some combination Judge Judy. I mean, you got to get a judge in there, you know, so it's like.
Right.
You could have a contentious divorce. Who knows?
I mean, dude, how does that idea come about? Like, Steve's like watching, you know, Bang Bus. He's like, dude, I would marry that chick. And then he busts in that. He's like, nah, I wouldn't want to marry that chick anymore. Like, how do you think about that?
I don't know. I just thought. I mean, I think that my fucking theory holds water, dude. I really do.
Yeah, I do. I think you figured it out, like for sure. And why does that have to be limited to a bus? I mean, you could have a brothel based
exactly.
It could be like a conveyor belt where, like, phase one, you get married, then you just slide along, you bang, and then you slide along to divorce court.
I mean, talk about a Vegas chapel. I mean, right, dude? Yeah. Like, you just got to move it over to Reno.
I like that.
What a cool afternoon. You get married, you fuck, you go through a bad divorce.
Yeah, that's a roller coaster of a day.
It could be a roller coaster.
I like it.
Oh man.
Hey, can we get back to the K-hole? Because I've never been in a.
Thank you, Scott. I'm so glad.
I'm curious about it. Like, what's it like? What are your guys' like worst K experiences or like best? But when you're in a K-hole, how long does it last? What are you thinking? Are you thinking you're gonna die? Are you tripping or are you loving it?
I think that the general big picture answer is that it's a real moving target, man. It's like various experiences like are various, you know. I mean, like I can, but you first, man, and I'll take it away. Let's not go for best or worst experience, but just notable.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna look it up real quick and see if I can find it. The guy who invented float tanks was really into ketamine, and he actually created a here it is. It's so funny he did this, but he created a dosage chart where he actually mapped the experiences out based on milligram dosages. If you look it up, just John Lilly ketamine chart. So he's got here now. I don't know because I was like insulfating. I have no idea like what the injection, what this means compared to like snorting it, but. At 30 milligrams, you've got something he's calling internal reality. 75 milligrams, which he calls I. 75 milligrams they, extraterrestrial reality, 150 milligrams we, the network of creation, and then 300 milligrams unknown.
Wow, dude.
Can you overdose on ketamine?
Oh my God. I gotta say, I love everything about this conversation that we're having. And I also really love the message that I have for you right now. Because well over a year ago, out of nowhere, one of my buddies said, dude, you should check out this company called Harry's. They make these awesome shaving products that don't cost so much. And I thought that's kind of weird. But I remembered it. And then lo and behold, I was in Target and I saw Harry's on the shaving aisle, sitting right next to all these other products that are really obnoxiously overpriced, which I had been wasting my money on. And I thought, let me just buy it and check it out. And I swear I have been using nothing but Harry's shaving products ever since. And I love them. Because they look great, they work great, and the company believes in it so much that they got 100% money back guarantee. They also have the best deal for listeners of Wild Ride with Steve-O. What's the deal? You're going to get a whole starter kit, which comes with the 5-blade razor, a weighted ergonomic handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel blade cover, which is a $13 value. I know it sounds crazy compared to all those other companies, but that's how reasonably priced they are. $13, except you get it for $3. So how do you get it? You go to harrys.com/Steve-O to get this killer starter kit. I swear by it so much, and I love that they're sponsoring my podcast now because I have been religiously loyal to Harry's for well over a year. I love it. You're going to love it. So get this killer deal at harrys.com/Steve-O. Thank you, Harry's. And thank you for being a listener. Now let's talk about ketamine. I'm so excited to talk to you, Duncan. I mean, honestly, I'm so excited on so many levels. And like what you just described there really, I think, reinforces my personal experiential theory that there's something absolutely spiritual in drugs, and particularly even in ketamine. But,
oh, God, ketamine is like, one of my friends who writes all these books on the occult calls it occult cocaine. It's such a occult substance. It's something about the dissociative effect. It opens up I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but I think you go into alternate universes. And
sure. Here's what I think is that like we are sort of relegated to this physical reality, physical illusion in this third dimensional sort of compartment. And I believe that when we ingest, certain chemicals and a variety of chemicals, that what we do is we essentially erode the barriers in between said apartments and kind of open ourselves up to entities from other dimensions.
Totally.
And it's a dangerous thing to do with drugs because with drugs, those barriers that we are eroding are essentially protective in a number of ways, and by eroding the barriers, we open ourselves up to sort of all things other dimensional, and that comes with a lot of very low frequency. And low frequency, absolutely, I would categorize as demonic, like demons, and high frequency being like sort of angels. So when I was, at the end of my run with drugs and alcohol, I was like fucking routinely, and I was so excited about it because I felt privy to what was going on, like in other dimensions with spiritual beings. So I just couldn't keep piling in enough drugs to keep it happening. Like the hallucinations that I was having, both visual, like hearing the voices, audio, like tactile, where you actually feel it. And I categorized all of the experiences with these beings as demons and angels, and then the third category, which I now think of as demons, trickster spirits, where they were just straight trying to fucking entertain me, and boy did they, because I was sitting in a chair. I remember I was snorting cocaine, I was inhaling nitrous oxide, I had all pills, weed, everything, and I just thought to myself, as I went to go do this line of cocaine, I just thought, there's no longevity in this. I'm straight killing myself right now. And then I had the thought, fuck it, I don't care. Like, I don't care if I die. I had that thought. I don't care if I die. I lean over to do this line of cocaine, and the swiveling office chair that I was in, as I leaned over, it physically spun around like a big strong dude grabbed it and spun like with the force of like a mechanical bull. And now I know intellectually for a fact that I did not actually spin. If there was a surveillance camera in my apartment, nothing would have happened. But I'm telling you, I had that experience, a very tactile experience. And there was another time sitting in that same exact chair, the whole fucking chair just straight erupted into flames. And every time I had one of these experiences, I'm like, okay, this is fucking cool. You know, this is going on. Let me double check. Is it? Yep. I just double checked, and it's still going on. The flames all engulfing me. It's not hot. I'm perfectly comfortable, but it's just really fucking cool that I happen to be in a chair engulfed in flames. Like, I had this skateboard screwed to the wall. So it was, vertical, right? And I had a globe screwed to the skateboard. So the globe was protruding over the doorway to the apartment, horizontally. And I like the fucking liquid Terminator. I watched that globe, like my own face, like pushed through it. You know, like it was the liquid Terminator. You could see my face push through it, and then fucking it just started fucking headbanging, boom, 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 and I'm like, fucking right on, you know. I had these curtains that were just on their own, open and close and open and close. Where that wasn't possible, there were lights that were never fucking there that was just flashing, like it just turned into a fucking rave. All this stuff was going on, and I was like, this is the coolest fucking thing. I just have to keep doing more and more drugs.
Yeah. That's the problem. See, this is what I love about Ram Dass. One of my teachers is Ram Dass, you've heard of him? This guy It
rings a bell.
He was hanging out with Tim Leary at Harvard, and they were the professors. They got kicked out of Harvard because they were like taking LSD and giving LSD to the students, and because they were interested at first because they were both like really brilliant psychologists. And this was a new substance, and they thought they had sort of like discovered what was going to be the next phase of human evolution, or a nootropic that was going to like completely accelerate the civilization. They get kicked out of Harvard. At the time, Ram Dass's name was Richard Alpert. And so they're like exactly where any of us have been, where we're running into this seemingly like built into the matrix inhibition thing that they currently, what do they call it? Tolerance. And so they're literally drinking LSD, like Sandoz Laboratory 1960s LSD, out of vials, like liquid LSD, drinking it because
not even droppers. Because I did a dropper.
Sipping it out of like shit. They're sipping. Yes. I'm not even, look, it's crazy. There's a great book called The Harvard Psychedelic Club. Yeah, because they were on acid, you do get a tolerance really fast.
Yeah, you do.
But they were running into the same problem. And so Alpert goes to India with a like shit ton of acid that Owsley, have you ever heard of Owsley the bear? It's like the dancing bears on the Grateful Dead. Shit, that's Owsley's nickname. He was the LSD chemist of the Dead, like Steely Dan, Kid Charlemagne. It's a whole song written about him. Oh wow! It's he's this famous. I know someone who went with him delivering acid in San Francisco and said, these fucking hippies, they'd come out of their house and they call it pranayama. I think pranayama. They'd fully bow, prostrating to him. Which is why there's a line in the Steely Dan song, which is like, did you feel like Jesus? Because he was like blowing everyone's mind. Anyway, he makes a special batch for Alpert, who takes it to India to give to people who've been meditating for, their whole lives, and ask them, what the fuck is this? And, some people loved it. Some people said, this is a waste of time. But he meets his guru. This is one of the famous crazy fucking stories. And his guru says to him, like, you have something you want to give me. Give it to me. What do you have? And so he gives him this fucking powerful acid to this old man in a blanket who eats it, and no reaction. Nothing happens. He gives him like something for us, for me, that's fetal position, like 500 micrograms. Like, that's weeping fetal position. What have I done? I'm never coming down. No response, no reaction. Alpert gets back to the United States, is telling his psychologist friends this story. They're like, "You got swindled. He pawned it. He palmed it. You know, he obviously didn't fucking eat. No one's eating 500 micrograms of LSD and having zero reaction. Physiologically impossible." So the next time he's with this guy, Neem Karoli Baba was his name, he says to him, "The last time you were here, did you give me something?" And he said, "Yeah," because this guy was telepathic, and there's no other way to put it. And he goes, "What did you give me? What did you give me?" And he said, "LSD." And he said, "Did I eat it? Do you think I really ate it?" Because he knows he's thinking he didn't really eat it. And he's like, "Give me more, give me more." So he gives him a massive doom dose. Like, I don't know how many capsules. These are capsules of this stuff.
What does a capsule look like?
You mean like, you know, when you get the, it's in, you know, like a Flintstones
fucking pill.
Like
Okay.
It's a pill, you know, like a dyed pill is the substrate the shit's in. So he's like, he's holding it in his hand, taking one, chewing it, taking the other, chewing it, taking the other, chewing it. Then he opens his mouth. So he sees like his tongue is just covered in like blue. And then he like, now I know people who saw this from the other perspective, because Ram Dass told this story a bunch. It's a cool story. But basically he like goes under his blanket and he starts shaking like he's having a seizure, moaning like, "Oh!" And Ram Dass is like, "Oh fuck. I just basically just killed an old Indian. Like I just killed my guru. I broke an old Indian man who like was like trying to like flex on me or something." And so then after doing this for a little while, and I know people who saw Ram Dass who was like about to cry, face pale, probably thinking about lawsuits, probably thinking about like how the Indian authorities might arrest me for this shit. Like, and then he like comes out of his blanket and he's like smiling. Goes about his business completely fine. You're just fucking with it. You're just fucking with it. Like, is this what you wanted me to do? Is this like what you were hoping for? Did you want to see something like that? But anyway, he says to him at the end of this day, he says to him, "We used to have something like this in the Indus Valley." He said, "This will bring you into the presence of Christ, but the problem is you can't stay there with this." And it was like just the most brilliant articulation of the problem with these substances, which is like, it's affirming what we all already know. Holy fuck, it's showing me what's inside the Ark of the Covenant. Like, I'm seeing past the veil and it's real. Whether or not sober people or people who've never tripped want to believe that, what can we do? But it's real. It's something. You're seeing something more than just like mashing your brain. But also, you can't fucking stay there, because it's like, we're in school here. We got to go to school here right now. Like, that's what we're doing here. You don't get to play hooky too much. It's like built in to not, it doesn't work out.
Do you think that like we've had past lives and that we've spiritually evolved to this point? Or do you think like this is something that we get one life and then...
I mean, come on, dude. That's a rookie question. Of course, we've had thousands of lives. Yeah, and let me tell you about a rookie move that you might be pulling without even realizing it. Paying full price for your Netflix subscription, but only accessing a fraction of the content that they actually offer. And how does that happen? Well, based on your IP address, Netflix will serve you domestic programming. If you're in America, you get the US content. But when you run out of stuff that you want to watch, what do? You get ExpressVPN, and now all of a sudden you can change your IP address to any of 90 different countries that they offer, and when you do that, boom, you're now magically accessing all kinds of great content that Netflix is only serving to other countries. It makes you get a whole lot more value for your Netflix subscription and all your other streaming platforms for that matter. Now, I'm going to offer you an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. How do you get it? You go to expressvpn.com/Steve-O. That's expressvpn.com/Steve-O. You get a 1-year subscription, and now call that a year and 3 months. thanks to me. Yeah, dude. So go to expressvpn.com/Steve-O, sign up and get privacy when you're surfing the web and 90 different countries to be in to get all kinds of extra content. Yeah, dude. Thank me later. Don't be a rookie. Get ExpressVPN. Now.
But not a lot of people think that.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe that.
I think
here's the thing. There is so much irrefutable proof of reincarnation that it's kind of laughable for anybody to not believe in it. Would you agree with that?
I love you. How sweet is that? You're like, no, this is proven. You're like Carl Sagan over there. No, we've got the charts. I mean, obviously, I do believe in it. And like, I have a method for understanding it just based on my own, like, various incarnations in my own life, you know? Like, if you look back at all the phases you've been through and, you know, every single one of you have gone through so many fucking phases.
For sure.
Like, I went through like a mild Smith's phase. I was wearing like a trench coat and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was, but to me, it was real. That was almost like a different life. Or like, you know, when I was in high school, certainly my concerns were so different from now, and also like my physical form. So when you look at like just forget like before we're born and after we die, if you just look at the general human existence, there's so many lives in any human life.
Sure.
I mean, people are reincarnating all the fucking time.
Right.
And so I think that, you know, whether or not there's some continuance, I think there is. I know it's not. I don't imagine it to be provable.
I agree with you.
What's the proof you're talking about,
I
Steve?
mean, just like the people who, particularly when they're babies, they'll just like say weird shit and then they'll check it, and, you know, and
yeah, there's that like 4-year-old that like
and
predicted her past death, and they found the place where
like little kids will be looking at pictures and they'll be like, oh well, that's when I was doing this. And they're looking at the picture of like a dead grandfather, and then everything they say checks out. So
yeah, full disclosure. I mean, I agree with you, Duncan. I was just trying to get the clickbait. You know, Duncan Trussell talks about past lives. You know, I mean,
right now,
holy fuck, really? You're like the Machiavelli of podcasts. Really? That's awesome, man. Wow.
Here's the problem with reincarnation. I think it's a great number of people are tripped up over this
because of religion.
Well, no, it's there's a numbers problem with it. You know, like if we are reincarnated, then how do you factor in the ever growing population? Are some
I solved it.
Are some souls new and are some souls recycled? And
multiverse.
Yeah, I think sure. I think that when you factor in all of the dimensions that we're not privy to, and then when you factor in the fact that even like a fleeting thought is essentially a life, you know, like there's such. And then,
you guys are like kindred spirits, dude.
And then when you bring into it like the crazy fucking quantum physics shit, where it's like every single possible outcome of every single possible situation is all simultaneously happening, and there is no such thing as right now, and all is right now. Like then it gets really crazy, and you don't have to worry about the numbers game anymore.
Then it works. But that is a valid. Also, God, man, this is like one of the only times I really broke through on DMT at Burning Man. I like did the thing and went into the thing that everyone talks about, and I was in the fucking thing, and you know, but I had this sense of like, oh, I could like completely like obliviate myself here, or somehow merge with the universe. Obviously not true. I don't never heard of anyone dying on DMT, but that DMT, not a voice, but you know, whatever it is, said, oh, you can always go back. You can always go back to that moment if you want. And then ever since then, I sort of revised my idea of reincarnation being a thing that starts with your birth and ends with your death. And now I see it more as like probably upon like dropping your body, or as they call it in the East, you might be able to like actually choose frames of your incarnation that you want to jump back into and start your life there, meaning that at any given moment, like future versions of you are sort of pouring into the current version of you just to experience life from this point going forward. But you would never know that because it's you, and they just sort of resonate with you. I mean, I think the primitive idea of reincarnation is that you die and you get a break. That's a funny one. Like a lot of new agers have this spa theory where you fucking get hit by a car and suddenly you're like floating in like some, hyperdimensional spa water. Like, I think the next life I want to be paralyzed from the neck down. That'll be awesome.
Sure.
Really,
the blueprint.
I'm sorry. What if it's not like that? What if it's just you die and you open your eyes and you're like in your 40s going through a divorce? There's no space. There's no rest. There's no anything. And you just have a little deja vu. Or you're like, what the fuck was that?
Sure.
What happened was you just came back into a new life with full amnesia of what you used to be.
Sure. Amnesia is a big deal. And I have no problem with any of that. I want to run by you two things. And then I want you to tell me if you think I'm a genius or if this is just completely idiotic. But
what if I already think you're a genius?
Okay, good. I really think I kind of figured something out with this, because the idea of like, how did it all begin? It's just a stupid question. Oh, there was Big Bang. All right, well, what banged? Like, okay, there, you come up with something that banged. All right, well, where did that thing come from? You keep going back and like, so the concept of linear time is clearly a flawed idea, right? And I at one point I was smoking some pot, I was writing an email, and I felt like I figured it out. I said, there was a time when humans thought the world was flat. And they were actually terrified to get in their boats and go too far because they were legitimately scared that their boat would fall off the end of the world and that they would perish. So then I just equated that. I said, like, I believe we will come to a point where it is equally ridiculous to think of time as flat, such that there's a beginning or an end that you could fall off of. When in fact, just like the world, time is round, dude. It's a cycle. Yeah. And
I know, man.
I mean, and if you think of it that way, then what was before that? What was before that? Nothing was before that, because it's a fucking cycle. It's round. It doesn't begin or end. And that's one. Yeah. That was one little sort of thought that I had that I was pretty proud of. Now I've got one more, which is that the idea of the body and death. Now we've heard the saying that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, but rather we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Yes. Now, to give the idea of like when we die, we awaken to eternal life, that actually we're eternal, and all of this. I liken, especially because we're multidimensional beings. So like we absolutely exist in all of these. We're just not aware of it, because when we incarnate in this physical body, we kind of make a deal that we forget that we're spirits. So we don't know what the fuck's going on. And we certainly do wake up at the moment of death. But now, to look at death and what it really represents, the theory that I came up with was to imagine that the soul, so to speak, is like a fucking like a radio wave kind of a deal. The body is essentially like a radio that picks up that Now I think that the flaw in our view of the human brain is that the human brain, the human body, is a generator of consciousness. Yes. Like a transmitter. It generates the consciousness like like a transmitter would. But I don't see it that way. I see the human body, the brain, as a receiver of the signal which is out there. So now to make it a metaphor, you could take a radio that's like dialed in to like a certain station, like 106.7, right? Yeah. Now you can take that fucking physical radio and you can take a sledgehammer to it. You can smash it. You can destroy it. Destroy that body till into oblivion. But you have done nothing to interrupt or kill the signal. So what we are is that we're the receiver of the signal. Yeah. We're the receiver of the signal. You can shoot yourself in the head. All you're doing is killing the radio. You're not fucking with the signal, man. And the signal is forever, dude. And on top of that, there's so many stations, dude. There's limit, and you can plug that station into a different fucking radio later on down the line, and there's your reincarnation and shit.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I thought about the receiver idea. It's particularly wrapped around like, when you meet someone who's all puffed up and shit, and it's like, it's a quality of confusion, I think. It's like if there were a sentient radio and it was playing the Beatles, it would be easy for the radio to be like, I'm fucking amazing. Like, literally.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think people get a little confused regarding their identity in that regard.
Oh, dude, that's another great layer on top. That just takes another step further. I fucking love that.
It's entanglement is what they call it. We're entangled in this situation. And and like in Buddhism, it's this is sort of the map of how to sort of predict what your next life is going to be. What they say is, well, look at what you're doing now, and that'll give you some idea of where you're headed. And it's because it's momentum based, essentially. So it's like whatever this particular frequency is, it has this kind of momentum to it. The momentum is karma. And so that momentum has been going on for, millennia, incalculable. This was actually one of my like ketamine visions. Was I was seeing my past lives. I couldn't specifically see him, but I knew somehow like what I was looking at was all my past lives. And there were so many of them, and they looked like fish eggs kind of floating in space, just all these ways my karma had expressed itself. But yeah, it's like, so this is why there is this emphasis on meditation, and people get confused about the statement, meditation is the preparation for death. And what it means is like, there is an acknowledgement of exactly what you're saying. The body is finite, but there's this sort of transmission that is your soul that's never going to stop. And so when you die, it's just, have you ever met like unless you're like lucky and you just get hit, you're like jogging in a marathon, get hit by a fucking car or something, probably you get sick. When people are dying, they get really sick and confused. Usually they're in a lot of pain. Then they start taking the morphine. Then they sort of like, and if you've seen someone die, it's nuts because they like literally they lift off of that thing you're talking about. Like it's like watching an airplane take off, only it's taking off from time, not the earth. And so they're spiraling through, like they're talking to their mom, and then they're talking to like, somebody that they knew, and you have no idea who they're talking to, but it's because they're spiraling through time because they're breaking free. But the momentum. So the idea here is like you want to die with some tranquility and some peace, because if you can handle it, which is some of these Tibetan lamas, they describe it as like being in a snowstorm. It's so confusing. So if you can maintain some element of being calm, then there is a possibility of at the very least like having a little bit more control over what your next life might be, instead of it being like what it is for what it is for a lot of people, which is like terrifying. And the description is like, suddenly you don't have a body. You've had a body all this fucking time. And it's like, what the fuck? I need a body, because that's what you're familiar with. And then you kind of, you impatiently race into your parents, which, by the way, which is something really cool in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is what they read to like monks who've died to guide them into the next life. The idea is you see all these people fucking, not to go back to Bang Bus or anything, but it's like you literally see a field within which there's all these people fucking. And it's weirdly like, it's like porn. It's like the one that turns you on the most, you go to that. So basically you were watching your parents fuck and you're like, that's fucking hot. I want to get in on that. And you like go into that. And then the next thing you know, you're their kid. And this is wow. This is why in this life we're so into sex and fucking and all that, because it's like that same momentum that brought us here, continues. It's all momentum. It's really fascinating. It's a really fascinating take on what happens when you die.
Well, it's crazy.
So Scott over here is just straight addicted to YouTube videos about people
like near-death experiences and like their experiences, what happened when they die. And I've been fascinated with that for years.
And it's weird because in the near-death experiences sort of community and all of these people telling their stories about it, there's a lot of common ground, man. You really, like, there's a lot that adds up and it becomes credible because everyone's describing the same thing. I've never heard about the watching people fucking part, but, like, I've heard about, like, they talk about a spirit guide, comes and you feel compelled that you want to like
Go with it.
Go with your fear. They say go with your spirit guide,
Yes.
go with your spirit guide. It's also really fascinating how like
A life review.
Yeah, the life review, dude, where you can like, I mean, dude, there's like, are we agreed that life review is like, we can just call that a fact because like all of the accounts of it are all so like.
Well, have you ever had like have you guys ever had like a life review in the drug experience where you go through like different situations? Because like in the near death experience, people have these life reviews, and they're like feeling how the person felt that you talk shit to, and I want to bring that up because like I'm so fascinated with your fascination with life reviews.
Life review is the most crucial thing, and if anybody hasn't heard this term, you can look it up. What it is that like at the moment of death, like, they say it in rock songs or whatever, poems, like your life flashes before your eyes. Yeah. Now, that saying about when you die, your life flashes before your eyes, like as it's described in people who have had the experience and then like died, had their life review, and then come back. And like,
yeah, they're completely changed because they're like, fuck, I've caused that much damage. Right,
you experience your entire life. Like you could say your life flashes before your eyes. It happens in a moment, but it also happens in super slow-mo. Like time's just not even, you re-experience your entire life in this flash with like super consciousness, like the consciousness of like the whole, like basically God, even if you don't like that term, but like you go through your whole life and you personally experience from the perspective of every thing that you had an influence over, and with the detail of that, if there is a mosquito like off like further than the eye can see, like you have the experience of being that mosquito. Like the idea of oneness becomes an experience where you actually, like, you're no longer separated. So you review your whole life, and it's not for the purpose of punishing you for like the harm that you've done to others. It's just for the experience. So it becomes real, like, oh my God. And the common denominator in having this life review is that everybody who comes back to being human, everyone who comes back to life, now they're so overwhelmingly concerned with not fucking over other people. They are no longer concerned with material things. Like they are like totally changed, and in such a way. And like I've seen so many, like just been so fascinated with this life review thing that I like to think I don't even need to have a life review to just trust that that's the truth, and just do not fuck with other people. Be generous.
Well,
like,
it's crazy.
Clean up your messes, like.
Yeah.
It's crazy because the two common denominators that people have, I mean, like thousands and thousands of people, like 90% of them come back and get a divorce, and then the other ones come back and they can't wear watches because watches don't work.
What?
Yeah.
I never heard the watch. I never heard
They're
either
like, well, they can't wear a watch because it always breaks.
Holy shit, we've added another fucking part of the roller coaster that you were talking about in the beginning. Like before the divorce, we put them under, like we kill them and then bring them back to life.
I mean, dude, and like there's a really good example of a guy who had a near-death experience, and there's a documentary about it. Is that the one called I Am? But the dude who directed all the like just monstrously successful Jim Carrey movies.
Tom Shadyac?
Yeah, this guy was like private jets, like fucking look at my fucking huge mansion. This guy was just so tens of millions of dollars for like every movie, and he was just cranking them out. So he just had obnoxious amounts of money. Then at some point he was riding his bicycle, had like a hellacious wipeout riding his bicycle, and in that wipeout, like had like where he died, had the near-death experience, came back from it, and the dude ever since I don't know if he gave everything away, but like lives in a fucking trailer in a trailer park in Malibu. Like just has no fucking interest whatsoever in like the lifestyle that he had. Like he's a good example of like how near-death experiences like change people. And,
I volunteered at a hospice called Rose Room Hospice in LA for a little bit. And the guy who was like, came to tell us how to like be with dying people, he was one of those people. He had a shit ton of money. He fucking died. He went the whole thing, the life review, the whole thing, didn't want to come back. That's the other commonality is people are like, no thanks, I'm done. It's like, no, you're not done. You're going back. And you go back and it's
painful going back into the body.
Yes. Well, what he said is what's over there makes this where we're at seem like death compared to that other place. Like we're in I think he called it a warp. Like he said, we're in a time warp when you're alive, and the other side is so wonderful. Yeah. It's more of the spa theory of things. I hope that's the case. I really do. I want that to be the reality versus like the other versions of it, which have justice built into them. You know, a kind of like mathematical justice. And maybe the life review is enough. Maybe if you do the life review and that is the penance, is like experiencing the way that you made everyone feel. And and that's all you need. That's the purification or something. But it's so mysterious, but I do think it's like pretty incredible the way that regardless of culture, regardless of what your religious background is, you're going to have the same experience when you die. That's one of the things the NDE experts talk about is it's like, it doesn't matter if you're Hindu, Jewish, whatever it may be, it's the life review, it's the light, it's all the things that you hear about, and it seems to transcend culture, which is another implication that, you know, it's something real, or if not real, the cynical version of it as well. It's something built into us.
It's crazy. Like you hear like a life or like a near-death experience story of like a 60-year-old woman that goes to church every day, you know, and she dies and comes back, and they're like, well, are you still a Christian? She's like, no, not at all. Like it has nothing to do with that, you know. And then, you know, just hearing that from that perspective, you're like, fuck, man, like there's something out there. You know,
I mean, it's more there's something in here, you know, like the idea of space and time is just such an illusion. But yeah,
the documentary that I did, the whole thing was like I went to India to go meditate, to go find like this thing I'm seeking, and like I read this thing from Emerson that said, you know, nete quasi veris extra, and it doesn't really tell you what that is, and I looked it up, and it was it's Latin for do not seek outside yourself. And I just had that. It's like, dude, I didn't have to go 15,000 miles to India to find any answers. Like, you can just do it from the wild ride van, you know, or just kind of.
Sure. Well, that's the classic archetype. Like, you had it in you all along, you know, like we're drawn to those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also like we can't have this spiritual fucking tourism right now. I mean, it's like, to me, like the ironic thing about spiritual tourism, when you're doing the thing, you get in the plane, you fly to wherever you think the holy people are. Going to the Amazon to take ayahuasca is like, as you're flying over the Amazon, you're just like dumping jet fuel on top of the place where you're going to go have your spiritual experience.
That's so funny.
So I think that's a real great epiphany you had, because especially these days, I don't know that, I think there's a bit of an illusion in all of that. That being said, if Ram Dass didn't go to India with a bunch of acid, I think I wouldn't be as happy a person now, because because of his experiences there. But maybe the idea is they already did that, so now we don't have to do it. You know, the data's out there, right, ready for you if you want to sort of pick up some path or discipline.
Do you have?
I just have to say that, like, your comment that it would be easy for the radio, which is simply transmitting or receiving a signal of the Beatles, to be like, dude, I'm fucking rad. It's like, dude, the radio getting all proud of itself for the signal it's picking up.
Thinking it's the Beatles. The radio thinks it's the Beatles.
They're taking credit.
And then next is Led Zeppelin. You're just strutting down the street.
I fucking do. That's my favorite thing. And as far as to like the commonality of all of the life review and all these experiences, like, I think that I do want to give some credit to, I believe, every like religious writing, every like spiritual way of life, for, even though like it's all so perverted and like just messed up over time. I think there's a common ground in all of it, in that the concept of oneness. That God is omnipresent, that we are all like sort of different expressions of the divine, and that separation is an illusion. And I try to explain this to people. Like, and I can't ever, maybe you can help me figure it out. And I got this from Neil Donald Walsh. I'm a huge fan of the Conversations with God book series. And
shit. I got it. Okay, that's the last straw, man. I'm going to put this on my list. I've heard about this book so many times. I haven't read it yet.
It's the best.
So right under Try PCP.
Spiritual brain boss.
God, got it.
Dude, Conversations with God. And all, like, it was a big fucking deal for me. I don't talk about it too much, but my mom in 1998 suffered an aneurysm where like she had like a capillary like burst and brain hemorrhage. It was subarachnoid brain hemorrhage, and it was like almost like the most tragic thing about it was that she survived, because she was like heinously disabled, both mentally and physical. And on top of that, she got bed sores, and bed sores are the worst fucking thing. I think they happen to defenseless fucking people who are helpless, and they're the most like my mom, and she survived for 5 years. And the reason I don't talk about it a lot is because I just don't like to bum people out. But my mom cried. She cried. She when my mom said my bottom. It was so hard for me, and I developed. I got really angry. I got really angry at any God that could allow for that experience. Fuck whatever God, let that fucking happen. And you can. This is my personal take on it. You could be like, oh, fuck any God that let the Holocaust happen. You could like the world is rife with examples of if you want to be mad at God, But now here's where Conversations with God really helped me a lot, was that the premise of it is that God is everything, but God as one singular unit, which is what we would refer to as God in the absolute. The realm of the absolute is devoid of experience, because there's only like the one thing. So, that's why we call it a relationship. You have to have separate things for one thing to relate to another thing. That is the realm of the relative. And so God as the absolute is perfection, is pure love, but without any experience of such. So God in the absolute, and this would be creation, has to divide itself into separate things such that there can be experience, which stems from relativity, one thing relating to another. And it is in that division where God divides itself into separate things for the purpose of experience. So the premise of Conversations with God is that all of creation, all of us, everything that exists in the realm of the relative is specifically an exercise in God experiencing itself. And by that view, then now I can look at it like my anger at God was based on a flawed premise that God was somehow over here and allowed this terrible thing to happen to my mom, who was over there. Whereas like in the idea that this is how people react to. Wendy's like, I'm out of here.
Your biggest fear. People are checking out.
Reacting like that.
Right. But the idea that it's not God was over there and mom, but mom was an expression of God. And it's not up to me to understand why mom's experience was valuable on any level. I mean, to be fair, it was also a natural law of cause and effect. Mom didn't take care of herself very well. And you can't chalk everything up to cause and effect, because a lot of bad things happen. But the idea that mom was God. God wasn't over there letting it happen. God, mom was God. God had that experience. God didn't leave her out there, But we're all God. And the idea that God divides itself into all these separate things so that it can have the experience of itself, then now all of a sudden, by adopting that theory, I look at you, I look at everyone, I look at the guy who fucking cut me off in traffic, and I gotta remember, oh yeah, we are God divided. We're all equally divine. And it's going to come out in the life review. It's going to come out in the life review that like it all comes back together, and now we actually have the experience as God of all the shit we did. So anything I do to you, I'm doing to myself. Anything, and like that makes us all equal. There's no better or worse. We're all God. And then if you can just adopt that theory, which I took from conversations with God, now that there is no room for hatred. There is no room for selfishness. It just doesn't allow, because we're all God.
You know what Ram Dass calls? He says we're all God in drag, and it's a cool way to put it. But like here's what I love. There's a form of yoga called Bhakti Yoga. It's what the Hare Krishnas do, but they're only one example of it. And what's really interesting about it is it's a breakdown of like exactly what you're saying, and you know, the detailed way that only like 5,000 years of thinking about this concept could bring, you know. And so there's a name for it, of course. The name, and I think I'm mispronouncing it, but it's something like Asinka Sinka Beta Tattva, which means simultaneous oneness and difference. So that's the description of Krishna. And then what's really cool about it, and not to say, okay, now you all have permission to be an asshole or whatever, but what's really cool about it is that any relationship with God is going to evolve you over time. So in other words, if you are truly angry at God, because that is a connection to the divine via anger, and because the divine, Krishna, is the source of all love, or the reservoir of pleasure. There's so many beautiful names to describe Krishna. Because that's what you're connecting to with anger, that's going to start coming into you through the anger. So the angrier you get, which is why the more your connection to that grows. So in the mythology, the worst demons who are trying to destroy Krishna out of just, you know, various forms of rage or anger, some of them may be justified, maybe not, they end up becoming the great disciples. They end up becoming the like true like best friends and associates of God. Because
oh my God, Donald Trump is the coming of Jesus.
He's an incarnation of him.
They were right.
The heavy duty, because the problem is, like, you know, anybody who's getting the thoughts you're getting, it's wonderful, because it means that you're on the way, you're on the path, and it's beautiful. A lot of people, they don't have these thoughts. Like, there, in the description you were giving earlier about the various entities you encounter in the astral realm is in the Bhagavad Gita. They break it down about, you know, I think there's an entire chapter dedicated to what is a demon, what's a demonic personality, and the description is it's very sad. Because what's happened is someone is completely ignorant of where happiness comes from. So whenever you run into someone like the person you were mentioning who died and suddenly he's living in a trailer, pre-living in the trailer, they've gotten confused. They think the material stuff is going to satisfy them. Fucking, it's like exactly your experience when you find yourself like, okay, if I do the right amount of blow, nitrous oxide, and like get all these things simultaneously to happen, then freedom. And it's really sad. It creates a feedback loop, you know? And so people like potentially Donald Trump or anybody who's become so consumed in themselves as the radio, it's a never ending terrible cycle that they go through. It's almost like some horrific Groundhog's Day. And so, which is where the compassion for them comes in, because it's like, fuck, you're wasting the whole thing. Like you're pretending. The gross depiction that it gives is like, imagine a dog that is so diseased, all its teeth have fallen out. It's found a dry bone on the street. It's chewing on the dry bone. And because it has no teeth, its gums are getting cut up by the dry bone, but it's happy because it thinks that its own blood is coming from meat on the bone. So it's actually like drinking its own blood and being like, oh, what a juicy bone. This is the predicament a lot of people get into, which is why, you know, anytime that's a weird, you know, very cliche experience probably everyone here has had, where you run into someone who seemingly has it all. And they're the most wretched, desperate, depressed thing that you've ever run into. And it's like you don't even know how to help them because, you know, they're so fixated on the next, you know, what's around the corner. Like, okay, well, it didn't work to have the mansion and the yacht and then the other yacht and then the jet. And I fucked so many people. They're getting in shape from fucking. You know, people are like getting like weird Bruce Lee bodies and they just fuck. It's from fucking, but it's not working. You know, that's the problem. It's not working.
It's empty inside.
They're humping a leg. They're humping a cosmic leg. It's like, it's just as pathetic as watching a horny dog hump a leg.
Let me throw this at you. You know, like the idea of the materialism doesn't work and everything. And I think that, like, but before I got sober, like, I had no confidence that I was gonna, I was certain that I was gonna die young, like go out in flames. Like, it was just a matter of time. And what made me cool was that I was resigned to that. So I didn't care about making smart business decisions. I didn't care about if I like knew what was going on at the bank account. I didn't give a fuck about getting screwed over in contracts because I was in this. I wasn't gonna live forever, but I was gonna be remembered forever because I was such a fucking bitch in radio, you know. And then I got clean and sober, you know, and all of a sudden started taking care of myself. Now, like in sort of early sobriety, it's like, okay, so now I'm actually did make it past 30 years old, and now I'm taking care of myself, and fuck, now I might actually live for, like, now I might not even be halfway through my fucking life.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, is that scary? Like, I think that death is super easy, you know. Death has to be easy, otherwise, like, you know, like, we don't have much to look forward to. Death has got to be cool. It's living that's hard, man. And like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm still not really afraid of death. I'm afraid of the fucking, like, oh my god, I've got all this living to do. So now, like, I got to actually get clever about business. Now I got to actually save up because, like, what I don't want to, you know. And on top of that, I'm through and through, I'm an attention whore, man. And like, and nobody wants to contemplate, let alone like really like ponder or really get, you know, obsessed with the idea of mortality. Right? Like, people just don't. In the East, totally easy. Old people are cool, take care of them. But in the West, like, a lot, you mentioned hospice. Probably a lot of fucking people in the West don't even know the definition of a word hospice.
Right.
Because they don't even fucking want to know. Like, they don't want to think about it. They got their fucking blinders on. Like, and la 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 la. I don't want to even fucking think about dying. Like, not gonna happen. And I don't want to look at an old people because to be old is a fucking party foul. You're reminding me of my mortality, and that's not cool. So so being old is a party foul. And to be an old attention whore is the scariest fucking, you know, to be to absolutely to have an overdeveloped need for attention as an old fucking wrinkly old person is the scariest proposition I could possibly fucking imagine. And that's where, like, sobriety for me represented, okay, I need to like have some separation between my persona. Like, I can't identify with like Steve-O, the personality. I gotta have some, like, build an identity as just who I am, and relationships what really matters. But my question is, what I'm getting to you with is that it's such, I intellectually, philosophically, I absolutely subscribe to the idea of material things don't work, like, you know. But then again, at the same time, like, I'm a hustler, man. I'm a hustler, and I'm trying to fucking run as many businesses as I can. I'm trying to, like, I'm looking for businesses which specifically represent a way out of the attention whore business, so that I can be an old person and not worry about where the fucking next meal's coming from. Right. So, like, so it's such, you know, and I got my daily meditation, dude. I do mantra-based meditation. Like, I make sure I average 41 minutes every day, like, 20. Yeah, I've done it for, dude, like a few days ago, like, my little thing.
Go ahead and show the camera, dude.
All right.
I know you want to do that.
Like, I'll show you where I'm at. I have meditated for 535 straight days, averaging 41 minutes. Since December 27th of 2019, I have spent 366 hours and 38 minutes meditating. Now,
Amazing.
I don't like transcend really too much, but the fact that I actually have the discipline to sit still and quiet and try, I think is like it's a big deal, you know. And I attribute like how well my life is going now with my disciplined meditation practice.
When he goes to Gelson's, he's floating 2 feet above the ground.
but I mean, but I get the daily meditation. I really am like I'm devout about you know, being vigilant and disciplined in my meditation practice. And I really believe that this meditation practice and the regularity of it, never missing twice a day, that I believe, and I know this is like fucking kind of a weird thing to say, but I believe it brings about a relationship with the universe such that the universe conspires in my favor. Call me a freak, but I don't care, because I fucking hang on to that and I fucking ride with it. And I really feel like I benefit from it. But at the same time, I can read every spiritual reading about how like it's not the material things, and I'm like, okay, but I'm gonna fucking hustle. I'm gonna try to make as much money as I can so that I don't have to worry about shit.
There's a funny verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is describing the people that come to him, and one of the descriptions is the seekers after gold, and because if we're going to start working with the idea that every single thing around you is an expression of the divine, then suddenly the whole like sacred and profane idea, it goes out the window. Like now we're just dealing with various forms of energy and our own karmic attraction to this form or that form. And so what ends up happening is people get confused. Like people, especially about Buddhism, they start thinking it's some sort of passive thing where you sort of hang everything up and then you're just sitting around and your whole life becomes sort of like a mistake, or everything you wanted and all that stuff was like an immature thing. I think this is a misconception, because I really think like the invitation is not to like give up your life. The invitation is live your life as you, but really live it, you know, because if when you look back at the unconscious way you were living, I think many people would think you were fucking very ambitious, even though if you're a nihilist or whatever, you were very ambitious. But whenever I look back at like unconscious periods, none of it mattered. Like I wasn't there anyway. So the idea is like you can be in your own life. And one of my friends, I remember like very sympathetically, he put his hand on my shoulder. He's like, you know, you just have to burn off all the karma. There's no way out of it. Meaning all those desires, all those things you want, all that stuff. It's like you still have that, and it's still your soul wanting to express itself into the universe. But now the idea is do it mindfully. You know, there's a big difference between my meditation teacher tells me like, here's how you drink. When you're drinking, the moment you aren't aware that you're drinking anymore, stop drinking for the night. You know, that's one way to do it. Meaning like, and you know, and if you try that, it's impossible. If you're like us, which is like 3-4 sips, I'm not doing fucking mindful drinking because the demon has come into me, and now it's like I want more Moscow mules.
Yeah.
I don't even know why, but there is a way. I think all I'm saying is don't be hard on yourself, because fuck, man, you're absolutely right. And also, if you read some of the Ray Kurzweil shit, watch out. The whole human lifespan might be like a lot more than we even think right now. If you know, and it would be a decision-based thing, but you think you're thinking like, I'm going to kick the bucket when I'm 80 or whatever. 70.
I don't know. That's the scariest idea.
What if it's 160? What if it's 200? What if it's 500?
Yeah, you're only 5% of the way there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that, and also the contemplation of death is, as I've been taught, like very important. And some people say, carry death on your shoulder.
100%.
Carry death. Yeah.
100%. Dude, to live with your blinders on, pretending to I don't want to think about I'm going to die. I'm just going to pretend that that's not a thing. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second. I could have made that like the forefront of my consciousness and be deliberate about living the life you want to have lived when it's over. You know, like,
but you got initiated, it seems like, into like some people, you know, you and I'm sure you have friends who are bitching about their mom or whatever. sometimes. And you and I, when we hear that, at least there's a piece of me that's like, must be nice to be pissed off at your fucking mom, because like once your mom's gone, that's it. My friend put it the best way. Is like, it's like the salt goes out of your soup forever. Or like Doug Stanhope talks about, I heard him say something like, there's no one to call and fucking brag to about shit. Like in the way you came with your mom, it's just gone. It's gone. And so, but that's impermanence. And when we lose our parents, and especially the way you lost your mom, my mom got diagnosed with cancer and then died over about 4 years. But I had 4 good years with her knowing she was going to die. Yeah. But what happened to you was and so many other people, just one day, for whatever reason, that vein capillary burst, and that's the end of your experience with your mom as you knew her for your entire life, gone forever. And this is the human reality. This is what it's like to be alive. And it's I compare it to the blinders. I think of it as like we've all been thrown out of a fucking plane. We're plummeting towards the fucking ground. Full speed ahead into God knows fucking what. And a lot of us, we've like set a nice dinner table and we're like eating and talking. And anytime someone's like, hey, aren't we falling into the void? They're like, shut the fuck up! Don't talk about the fucking void! Eat your fucking mashed potatoes!
Oh my God, dude. I mean, we can do this forever, man. What a joy. What a fucking joy,
What a
man.
joy.
Thank you. I really have enjoyed this. And of course, I'm in my head thinking like, or is it like, did I fucking just shut the fuck up and not talk so much? Like,
I loved every second of it, man. No. This whole thing is like, it's because the other thing about the radio problem is like, puffed up radio thinks it's the fucking Beatles. There's a lot of radios that like think they're the opposite of the Beatles, that it's more likely, that people are like really hard on themselves.
Dude, I'm just straight static, man. I can't even pick up a fucking
yeah.
I got a fucking busted ass antenna. Oh man, well, dude, is there anything that we can promote for you? You got like, dude, the Netflix thing's going strong.
Yeah, well, and I have my own. Of course, I have a mandatory podcast called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, which is, that's pretty much. I've got some other stuff cooking I can't talk about, but that's my main thing, and I love doing it. And if I'm lucky, I have conversations like this on it. Because they're my favorite kind of conversation to have.
Dude, I can't talk to people about this shit. I mean, here I'm with these guys all the fucking time, and I feel like they heard me say a lot of this shit for the first time. Like, you can't, that would be really interesting to see how this episode performs for us, because this one's super dear to my heart, man. This is like really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anytime. Listen, man, I know everyone says this to you because you were in the unfortunate predicament of being very famous, but anytime you want to just shoot spiritual shit that isn't being recorded, reach out. I love these conversations. I can have them all day long. It's my favorite thing to do. So thank you. It's really nice meeting all of you. And
likewise.
Congrats on your awesome podcast.
I appreciate it so much, man. Dude. And congrats on everything you got going on, dude. I really,
thank you.
It's a joy, man. So fucking A, we'll sign off here.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hari.
Dude, the radio thing, and like people think they're the Beatles. Come on, I love that. And I really believe that our Wild Ride with Steve-O podcast just gets better and better, man. I really, truly think, look, the last one was Dad. The one before that, T-Pain. I really think that we're operating at a high level, and I'm super grateful. And as always, super duper grateful for you guys sticking around to the very end. Now, I haven't said this in a long time to you guys, calling you the street team, but man, would it mean a lot to me if you would go post a screenshot, whatever, like just hit up Duncan Trussell to let him know how much I loved this episode. And if you did too, please let him know that as well. I love you guys. Thank you.